All right, welcome back to the channel. We got a crypto market update. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and there's a lot to talk about. So let's get right to it. So first off, SEC is going after Binance, and their claim there is that Binance is an FTX 2.0. We will see. They're also the SEC also has a lawsuit with Coinbase. Their claim there is that Coinbase is an unregistered broker dealer, and that Coinbase is selling unregistered securities. The big news there is that they named around 12 coins that they claim are securities, and some of those are some of the big names. The one that I used to own and like a lot is Polygon Matic, a layer 2 solution to help scale Ethereum. Some of the other big ones on there were Cardano, Solana. And so, because of that, there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to all the altcoins. So, me personally, there was a month there where altcoins were really hot and it was fun to trade them around. And then I dumped all my altcoins except for Polygon because I was using that for DeFi on Uniswap. But when I had a bad trade in Nvidia, I needed liquidity a few weeks ago, and I sold all my crypto. So that was, I guess, a blessing in disguise. But yesterday, I did buy back into Bitcoin. I've been waiting for Bitcoin to hit 25,000. I've been looking at it saying when it hits 25, I'm buying. So I bought some yesterday, and I will keep buying as we go down and even as we go up. Ideally, as we go down, I want to buy it at a better price. So that is the regulation news when it comes to the SEC. I think that is going to be short term bad, like we've seen for these altcoins. Last weekend was a bloodbath for these altcoins. If we look at like Matic here, I mean, it was 150 not too long ago, and now we're down in the 50s, and we could go a lot lower. So, because of this, we're going to get some clarity on what coins, what are they? Are they commodities? Are they securities? What are these? So I think longer term that's good, but obviously short term you're going to see a lot of selling pressure because of the uncertainty, and also there's some exchanges that are delisting some of the coins that the SEC claims are securities. So Robinhood delisted Polygon, Cardano, Solana. And so that's probably one of the big contributors here to these mass liquidations is because all those people that that's where they're holding their coins are saying I got to dump these or I got to move them somewhere else. So that's the situation. We need to get some more clarity there and see where that goes. But in my opinion, it's all no touch for now. Until we get clarity, all the altcoins are no touch. Ethereum, I'm not even looking at now either, unless it really dumps, and then I'll go in because I think Ethereum is so big and so many businesses use it. I think they're going to get a lot of pushback if they call that a security, especially in the U.S. because there's no other countries that I've seen where the regulators are saying, "Yeah, we need to go after these," and they're calling them securities. We're the only country that is regulating some of these as securities. So, anyways, Bitcoin right now seems to be the only safe thing to be holding. Everything else is a little shaky right now. So that is the regulation news, and we'll have to see how all that plays out. We also got some big news today. Let's see if I can pull this up. BlackRock. So BlackRock is the largest asset manager in the world with $10 trillion assets under management. And they filed today for a spot Bitcoin ETF. So I'm not going to get too crazy into the details of spot Bitcoin versus futures Bitcoin, but this is a big deal because there's not a pure play way for institutional investors to buy and hold Bitcoin for their clients, right? So if you have a Roth IRA, it's difficult for you to buy Bitcoin and hold it in there like a stock, right? But if you were to buy gold, there's gold ETFs like the GLD. which is an ETF that they supposedly have all this gold in a safe. Let's say they have $10 billion worth of gold, and then they sell, $10 billion worth of shares to the public. So you can buy an ETF that is backed by the gold that's in the bank, right? So that's the same scenario here. Is there's going to be X amount of Bitcoin that is going to be held by Coinbase, and then BlackRock is going to create that into a fund and then sell little slices of that like stocks. So you can buy a share of this big pie of Bitcoin, if that makes sense. There currently is a futures ETF, but that's complicated and it's kind of garbage because futures are just contracts. There's no actual asset. It's all speculation on what is the price going to be 3 months from now, and you can have a little contract. So if Bitcoin goes up, it doesn't necessarily increase the value of that ETF, but a spot Bitcoin ETF does. The big news here is that the regulators have blocked every spot Bitcoin ETF that has been pushed in front of them. But these guys, I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here, but these guys are going to get this done. That's all I'm going to say, I guess. These guys know how to pull strings. So that's all I'm going to say. So that's big news, because if that's the case, you're going to see a lot of money that has been unable to buy Bitcoin, even if they like it. They're going to now have an easy vehicle to get in and out of Bitcoin, and that's going to cause more demand for Bitcoin. You can see on Twitter here, Bitcoin ETF trending. So that's good news there. When we look at the Bitcoin chart, we're in an uptrend, but we're at the bottom end of this uptrend. So it's going to be interesting to see. I know I've got a bunch of crap on this chart, but you can kind of see, we're moving up and to the right. We're making lower or higher lows, right? So we're not creating a low that's lower than our previous lows, right? So here's a low, here's a low, here's a low. They are stair-stepping upward, which is a good sign, meaning we're in an uptrend, but at the same time, we're pulling back. So the question is, do we break down on that uptrend, or is this just a local bottom in the uptrend and we work our way back up? Nobody knows. I have no clue. You have no clue. Nobody knows. But that's just where we're at. So that's where we are. We'll have to wait and see. But with everything being said, I want to show you some of the longer term stuff, because it's easy to zoom in and get, oh my gosh, look at that big red candle on the 3-minute chart. But longer term, this is a longer duration asset, in my opinion. This is something that now is the time, in my opinion, not a financial advisor, do your own research, do your own homework, all that stuff. In my opinion, this is something that you want to buy and hold for the long term and wait for the next bull cycle, which there will be another bull cycle. When we look here, Bitcoin goes through these 4-year cycles. So this is a logarithmic chart, so it kind of zooms things out a little bit better than the chart I had pulled up recently. And Bitcoin will go through these big runs, parabolic 4-year runs, pull back. Big 4-year run, pull back. So I'm not saying we won't pull back anymore, and who knows, maybe we go to 12,000. I have no clue. But we're getting closer to the start of that 4-year cycle, and a lot of that, those 4-year cycles are kind of dictated around the Bitcoin halving. So, anyways, if you just look at this chart here, we've had our downtrend. Not saying we won't have more red days. I mean, look here. You could say the start of the, let me zoom in on this a little bit more. You could say the start of the 4-year cycle was here, but we still had a lot of red days here. I mean, that might be an entire year. And look at that drawdown. I mean, it looks small because we're so zoomed out, but that would have felt really painful. But it's always darkest before the dawn. That's always a funny quote. I always think of Peter Lynch, because he said it's always darkest before pitch black. So there's 2 ways you can think of that saying. But anyways, It does look like here we've had quite the drawdown, and we may be at the beginning of a 4-year cycle. And who knows, maybe we go back down, like I said, to 12,000. But I do think eventually there will be more liquidity in the system, and people will flock back to some Bitcoin. Again, longer term, the CEOs of the following companies all own Bitcoin: Reddit, Uber, Apple, YouTube, PayPal, Tesla, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Airbnb. These are some of the star businesses that are out there, and the founders and CEOs, they're believers in Bitcoin. They own Bitcoin. So that to me says a lot. They own dollars, they own stocks, they own all that too, but they do see value in this asset, and they do see value in having a small piece of it in their portfolio. And again, you don't need a whole lot here, right? So if we're right about Bitcoin, you don't need a whole lot. So if you had a small amount of Bitcoin, 0.5% of your portfolio there, and you held it through this move, that 0.5% turned into 5% of your portfolio. Then you rebalance. You take profits there, and then you go back down to having maybe 1%. And then if you held that 1% here, that 1% turned into 20%. Now you have to rebalance again, right? So that is kind of what is going on in these cycles. You don't need to own 20% of all your assets in Bitcoin, but if you have a small allocation and the thesis is correct, these moves are so great that that's where you get the alpha from. So, I've heard Bitcoin described as kind of like dummy insurance, right? Because Bitcoin really goes up when the money printer, when liquidity just goes crazy. And so that is kind of that's where the hedge comes in, right? Because if they print all this money, it's going to flow into assets all over the place. You want to own stocks, you want to own real estate, but this is the most sensitive asset to liquidity. So, anyways, longer term thinking here. That's just another chart kind of showing where it's like, okay, Bitcoin is in this long uptrend when you really zoom out. We've had a downtrend, and it looks like we're making that rounding bottom. And I'm not saying we're going to all-time highs anytime soon, but again, when you see these rounding bottoms, these are at small numbers, and the moves are thousands of percent on the bull cycle up, thousands of percent, and it's going to be choppy. But if you just zoom out 5-10 years, I do think there's a great chance that Bitcoin is over 100,000, maybe much, much higher. So when we're talking here, do I buy at 25? Do I buy at 26? Does it even matter if we're right and Bitcoin moves up substantially higher? Does it matter if you bought it at 26,000, 20,000, 12,000? Does it matter if it's 250,000? Are you going to be thinking, "Oh, why did I buy at 30,000?" So again, the big picture here with Bitcoin, and when we just talk about BlackRock being one of the largest asset manager, and they manage $10 trillion, and they're only one asset manager. There's so many out there. There's Fidelity, there's State Street, there's Goldman Sachs, there's JP Morgan, there's Bank of America, there's Merrill Lynch. I can go on and on and on and on and on. There's so much money out there in the system, and Bitcoin is only worth $500 billion. It's still tiny, right? It's still teeny, teeny, tiny. So again, long-term thesis here with this thing. So this video, like all of them, has gone on longer than I wanted it to, but I hope you get my thought process here. There's going to be a lot of news going on. There's going to be a lot of stuff, chopping around here. So keep your eyes open, keep your ears open if you can. And that's all I got for you guys for today. Peace out.